This is the Rolling with Tay podcast. I'm your host, Tasia, aka Tay, and this is episode 12. And my guest is Keshia. And let me just say, Keshia is super dope. I'm definitely a fan. We met in May of this year, and yeah, I we just were just speaking, and I'm like, I probably can talk to you for hours, pick your brain, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that to you. So, um, but yeah, thank you for being a guest, and for people who are seeing this is very new because usually I just do audio interviews, but I am on Riverside.fm, and Keshia was so kind to say, you know what? Let's do it. Let's have a video podcast interview, and thank you for being my first video podcast official guest.
Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to be your guinea pig. I at the last second was like, let me find my glasses and try to look a little presentable. And I'm glad because I didn't realize this was going to be recorded. Yeah, here we are. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to diving into this. Like I had just said a few minutes ago, when we met in May, at the start of the 1928 Legacy Tour, I had already knew or seen a little bit of what you were doing, and I knew you were big in history and stuff like that. And so I'm like, oh, there's a connection here. And so anytime I can geek out over Black history, I'm so excited.
Yes. On that ride to the GW, we were just talking about Black history, Black cyclists. Yes, we could have. Listen, I could have rode with y'all and talked to you for hours about about that.
Sure.
I do want to say congratulations because you won second place in a cyclo. What is it called?
Cyclocross. Yeah.
Cyclocross race.
Yes. Yeah.
That is super dope. That is super dope. I will ask you a little bit more about that later, but I did want to say congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I came in first actually too last weekend. So yeah, for my I'm still a baby in the sport, so in my category, but yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Yo, when I say Keshia's dope, Keshia's dope. Okay, so let's hop right in. On your Instagram, right, your bio says somewhere running, riding bikes, and experiencing joy. And what does joy look like for Keshia?
That is a question that I still try to put into words, just describing it, but I think it's an ability to tap into the beauty of ourselves, of what's around us, really being able to kind of escape a little bit and feel a sense of freedom and passion and pleasure, all those feelings you get. I think joy is all of that. I think joy is carefree, and it's we talk about at Major Knox Adventures promoting radical joy because sometimes, especially as people of color, we don't always get a chance to feel that joy because sometimes life is just life and it's heavy and it's so much, and being able to find moments in spite of all of that is super important, and it's radical because folks don't necessarily want to see that from us. They want to talk about our trauma and focus in on the negative aspects, and it's just being able to show up with a smile on your face, have a good time, again, have that freedom and that openness to adventure and trying new things is something that is important to me, and allowing people to show up as their most authentic selves in order to do it is big, because sometimes the images we see don't always connect with us when it comes to the outdoors or bikes, and so being able to share that with people is super exciting and important for me personally, and to experience with others.
Joy. for me, is the outdoors, is on my bike, is on my skates, hiking with friends, um, learning how to swim. I'm starting to run. Like these things are bring me joy,
Yeah.
and as I got older, I gravitated towards these things. Before, when I was younger, not so much, and I fell into those stereotypes of, we don't do that. Even though I was young doing that type of stuff. I was ice skating. I was taking karate. I was doing these things as a young Black girl, but, got to a teenager and I was like, no, I'm not, so I kind of suppressed my joy. For,
Mhm.
I was skating when I was younger. I was
Yeah.
riding bikes and doing all these things. But as I got older, that those are for kids and
Yeah.
we don't do that anymore. But
Yeah.
then I'm like, I bought some skates and I'm like, I miss this. I miss doing this. And
Yeah.
then I found people who also did it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one. And then when I saw Black people doing it, other Black people doing it, I'm just like, okay, I'm really not the only one
Yeah, I
doing
mean, like what you said, there's so many things that I like would touch on about what you said. One of them being the fact that like we do, if we have a certain level of opportunity, we try these things of like riding bikes or skating or if you went to summer camps, you had summer camps that were taking you to all
right.
these different places and stuff like that, and like we grow out of it because we start to be socialized that we've got to get serious. We got to start focusing on these, attaining some whatever level of success, and like life again starts lifing, and like the adulthood starts to hit you, and we kind of forget that like, oh, we could find, like, we could go back to those things that were childish that really weren't, right? Like they were just an activity. As we get older, also what is fun changes for us, and sometimes it's like going to the bar or drinking or whatever, but as like, I think the pandemic for a lot of people kind of opened us up to like, okay, well, what else could we be getting into and doing and stuff like that. um and I think like what's also special too, that thing of like, oh, we don't, like, Black people don't do that, or that's like a white people thing. I same, like there's so much that I didn't get to experience when it comes to the outdoors until I was in my 30s. And, like I started meeting, I live in DC, and I started meeting all these people from different parts of the country who like they grew up, Black folks grew up camping with their families.
Yep.
And I'm like, what? Like, I would have never expected that or thought that, like, and so that is the beauty of like entering new spaces. You start to find out, like, oh, not only are we and were we doing, like, not only are we doing it, but we were doing it and we
Yep.
have been doing it. And
Right.
I think when the more I started to see that, the more I was like, okay, wait, what's the history of this stuff, like, and that's what got me to digging, because I'm just like, well, if I'm learning of all these people who have done this and been doing it, and they say they know other people that's been doing it, why aren't these stories being shared?
Yep. I'm with you. So on the history tip, I'm a genealogist. So researching family, but then I hit a brick wall. So what do? Okay, I still like to research. Let me start researching Black history. But let me research the history of Black people doing these activities that I'm doing. So once I got into cycling, okay, let me look into, if there were any Black cyclists before me. Let me look at newspapers.com and let me look and see 100 years ago were they were Black people biking, and they were. Let me do the
Mhm.
same thing with skating. Let me do the same thing with these other things. So similar to you, I started digging and I was just like, does anybody else know this? And
Right.
I would just be so happy, like, and share articles. I'm like, So then when I first saw your Instagram, and I think I saw you on a video, and I was just like, I reached out to you. I was like, hey, I'm with you with the Black cycling history in general. Please keep it up. do like
Thank you. Same.
spreading spreading the knowledge of Black cycling and the history of
Yeah, I
it,
mean, I
you
think
know.
it's important because, like, especially in the cycling realm, I learned about Major Taylor like maybe 5, 6 years ago. And when I did, I was like, wait, this person was so incredible in this sport. And I never heard anything about them. And to me, when I did start initially digging, it's like you only see one or two names.
Right.
And I'm like, how the heck is there only one or two people? Why is there only one or two people? And for me, it was like falling down that rabbit hole of like, who else? And why is it that Major Taylor is the only name we know? And you know, you start to discover other names and other folks who were trying to break into the space, and the reasons why they were held back. And honestly, I think that's a part of like why people don't know about the history, because I think if we know about where we came from or what we come from, like the chances of us going beyond that or stretching beyond that, feeling empowered changes. We start being inspired and looking at the possibilities. And for a sport that initially didn't even want us in it, why would we celebrate the Black people that were doing well? We were trying to keep them out. We didn't even want them around. And so for me now, when I find these new stories, it's like it excites me. Like the reason that I do the 1928 Legacy Tour from Harlem to DC is because I read this article on a newspaper article from a blog that is like talking about these 5 women who decided to do this in 1928 and then had a nerve to challenge other women to do it. And I was like, well, I guess I'm riding from New York to DC now. Like, that's it. Like, at that time, I hadn't even ridden more than like 50 miles, but I was like, I guess I'm doing a 250-mile bike ride. I don't know how it's going to get done, but it's going to get done because they did it and they wanted us to do it. And so it's like, knowing and finding out that there was a place for us, we created places for ourselves. It's just like, it is inspiring and it's exciting. And it's like that same feeling of, I got to share this with as many people as
Yes.
possible. You have to know this, because it's like, even if you don't go on to bike ride 250 miles, that's okay. If you get inspired to go outdoors and do anything that feels exciting and brings joy and yeah, excitement and pleasure to your life, please do it, because that is our way of being able to sustain and thrive and find freedom, is pleasure. We forget that pleasure is a part of freedom. And so yeah, I also share that same excitement.
And when I saw that you did this ride, I was like, I have to be a part of it, right? In any way, in any shape or form, I have to be a part of it. And in May, myself and a couple of women from Black Girls Do Bike did the send off from Harlem and rode with you and a couple of other cyclists who were doing the tour over the George Washington Bridge. And I was so happy. Um, like as I was riding back to work, I was like, man, look at me up so super early, but I didn't care. Like, now I'm riding downtown. Like,
I mean,
it's
honestly, like
so
it
cool.
was so great to have y'all, because that is my hope, is that as the years go by, we not only get more people to do the full tour with us, but we also get to experience it with the people whose communities we're riding through. You know, when we do that tour, we see people like, I remember there was this one Asian woman was walking her child to school, and she like stopped in the middle of the street and just looked at us with such amazement and excitement on her face. And like we have people every year that is constantly asking us like, what are y'all doing, where are y'all going? Like, we're not used to seeing groups of women of color like this traveling. And to me, I'm like, I hope that the excitement we get to experience as the folks doing the tour gets to spread to those people, and they do also get excited, or also are like, let me try something new. So yeah, I'm like, it was just great to be able to share that sisterhood with you all was I was also just as filled. I still am and excited about it, and look forward to hopefully having some of you all join us for the full tour. So
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of that, how does it work? Do people apply? Do you have a cap on how many people you take with you? Um, do you have to be a female or identify as a female to participate in the tour?
Yeah, so our tour is for women of color. You don't have to have any particular level of experience. We host an interest meeting to kind of fill everybody in on what to expect. There's no like interview for it, but we are really big on like the interest meeting is mandatory before you can register, because we want to make sure folks are fully aware and understand what we're asking of them, what they're asking of themselves. We want to make sure that you know
Yeah.
what you're getting yourself into, not because anything is crazy, but because it is a big commitment. I always say that our tour is about pleasure, is not about a suffer fest. And so even though it is extremely challenging to do this, to do the distance that we do, and the going through the terrain, and there's a lot of elements that do make it very challenging and is unfamiliar to a lot of folks. We want to make sure that you're prepared for it. And then when you go out there, it's like, okay, yeah, you might be challenged, but you know you're capable because we've helped you in the lead up to it discover new things about yourself, experience new things, experience new distances, learn about your nutrition, learn about your body. Like, we want, when you get there in the middle of the tour and you experience certain things, you already know how to prepare yourself, or give yourself what you need, communicate to us what you need so we can be supportive of you. Because again, it's a sisterhood, it's collective. So it's like, we do that, and the hope is not only will you do our tour, but the hope is that, one, you'll come back and be a mentor for the next year. We also hope that you'll go off into the world, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experiences, and doing your own adventures. So yeah, that's basically what the 1928 Legacy Tour experience is about. We want to not only amplify our legacy of the past, but we're trying to build towards the future. And we do a lot of fundraising from our virtual challenge, because we also do a virtual challenge for those who can't come in person with us. That helps raise funds for our bike giveaway that we do literally the following Friday, where we're giving away, at this point, we've given away about 100 bikes, over 100 bikes, to youth from like underserved communities in the DC area. We've raised thousands of dollars for youth programs, not just in DC, but also in Philly and Baltimore. So, we're trying to do what we can to support the future legacy, so that the next few generations don't have to wonder who was there and what was there. It is a normal, regular thing for them.
I told you she was dope. I told you she was so, man. You are honoring these 5 women. I know they're looking down, like, I know that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure also when there's always a moment on the tour, especially day 2, the infamous day 2, where we're all kind of like, what are we doing? And like, why, like, if this hurts this bad, or it's this like challenging for us today, like, it just makes us have so much more respect for what those 5 women did in 1928. Like, because it is hard, especially if you're not used to doing this type of cycling, it is challenging. But also I remind everyone and myself, we've done hard things before, but it's also just like, we come from a legacy of folks who do hard things. And so, yeah, I sometimes I feel like, I wonder if I can feel them and their spirit with us and guiding us. And I mean, we've had some adventures these last few years. And I'm like, it's only them that could have helped us get through this, because like, there were times where we were wondering, like, should we call the tour quits? Should we like stop? What, like, and we're always able to find a way, and we're always able to dig deeper. And I'm like, I think it's a bit of them being here with us.
Yeah, it definitely has. It is. It is. I know. I can just imagine, like 1928. We're gonna do this thing, but well, I did a little research, and it was one or two of them who were cyclists, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And just think about, like you said, if it was, it's hard for us now, right? Go out and climbing up those hills. 1928, with the
Different
type of bikes they had,
construction,
right?
different bikes, like different social climate. Like
Right.
there's a
So
lot.
much. So much.
There's a lot. There's so many levels to what these women did. And like you mentioned, two of them did have a cycling background. One of their fathers used to race bikes, which
Mm-hmm.
again just goes to show that generational thing where many of us definitely didn't grow up seeing that. Like even myself, a gen what are we, Gen X person or Gen Y person, like I have never known anyone in my family or in my community that cycled for
Mm-hmm.
pleasure as an adult, let alone raced. And, they could say that they came from that and they were able to take these other women with them. And, we don't really know what kind of experience they had. But I also say there had to be a level of sisterhood between them because they didn't have phones, they didn't have trackers, they couldn't just go off and leave the other four or five or three or whoever. Like there had to be like safety in numbers and checking in on each other, making sure they're good. Like that is the experience I imagine they would have had because again, social climate, and they were going towards the south. They were riding through sundown towns.
Right.
Like that is something that I want to, or not want, but I have been embedding into our experience. Like I tell people all the time, like our 1928 Legacy Tour may not be for everybody. And I'm okay with that. That doesn't mean you can't do your own Harlem to DC route. But here, I want to try to recreate as much of that essence that I believe they shared during their experience. And, I believe we have been doing a great job at that for the last 3 years. We always have folks who come back and, again, act as mentors. We have folks that are helping host this year. We've got folks that are like leading things and so it's that continuing to build that legacy out there and I'm really just so inspired by those women.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired by them because you are picking up where they left off. You accepted the challenge, and every year you continue the challenge and you bring new people along. So I think that's amazing. Two questions. How similar is the route that they took?
Mm-hmm.
And the second question is, I believe they stopped at a few of the YMCAs or YWCAs,
YWCA.
YWCAs. Are
Mm-hmm.
those still there? And then do you pass those to say, hey, this is where they stayed the night while they were here?
Yeah. So I forgot the first question.
The first question was,
Their
how
route.
similar? Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of the route, we don't exactly know what route they took.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I have been slowly trying to do is get an idea of what roads even existed back then. Because I feel like if I have an understanding of that, we might have a better understanding of what they likely could have taken. I know that the GW Bridge didn't exist, so that was not what they took. But yeah, so we try to, we're taking what we can in terms of bike routes in today's time. Which again, I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't too far, like some of the roads we're taking
Yeah.
aren't too far off.
Mhm.
In terms of the days in which we do it, we keep it at the 3 days just like them. However, we kind of do our miles a little bit differently. When they initially did their tour, they go from Harlem to Philadelphia, so we keep
Yeah.
that the same. And then they decided to take a shorter day as a rest day. So they go from Philadelphia to Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah.
And then they had a big day on the back end going from Wilmington to DC, which, again, when I talk about the layers of how dope these women are, if you know anything about the terrain in Maryland, you know that it is a bunch of rollers the whole time. And these women did over 100 miles to get to DC that day. And not only when they got to DC, they decided, like, oh, we want to sightsee. When they did their tour, they did it Easter weekend.
Yeah.
So that's also something that's different. They did it Easter weekend, and around that time is the cherry blossoms. So when they got to DC, they rode around Haynes Point so they could see the cherry blossoms, and they went around the tidal basin before going to Howard and checking out Howard, because Howard is and has always been a big deal within the Black community, before calling it a night and going back to New York. So we keep essence of that. So for our tour, like I said, we do the Harlem to Philadelphia. And then we go from Philadelphia to Baltimore.
Okay.
So we kind of front load most of our miles. And then the last day is our shortest mile. But what we do is when we get to DC, that's when in each city we try to host a community ride, invite the community to join us. So when we're in DC, we end our tour the way they did by inviting the community to join us for a ride around the monuments in the tidal basin in the city, just like they did before finally finishing. In terms of the YWCAs, that's actually part of what we get to stop at. So along our day 2, we passed through Wilmington. And so we made a kind of cut into the city a little bit more so that we could check out where they stayed the night. And then when we're in DC, we also, during our community ride, we stop at the YWCA that they stayed at in the city. Those 2 locations are the 2 that I believe are still around. Philadelphia, I have to do a little more digging. I don't think the Philadelphia building is still around, but we also start our tour on the same corner that they did. So while the YWCA in Harlem doesn't exist anymore, we still start our tour there, just as they did. And what also makes that location special is that that particular YWCA is how they all met, which is really beautiful. And it was also the first YWCA in the city that allowed Black women to stay there. So it was also a staple within the Black community in Harlem. So to be able to start the tour on the same corner that they did is really special to us. To be able to pass by things that they got to pass by 95 years ago is really special to us. To be able to share the experience with our community is really special to us. So yeah.
To have to go on that ride. I
Yes,
do. I have
please
to do
join
it.
us. Our interest meeting is on November 28th. So, and we have a couple interest meetings in December as well. So yes, I would definitely say come join us. I think you would really, really get a kick out of it.
Major Knox Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is it? Does it tie into the 1928 Legacy Tour? And when and why did you start it?
Yeah. So Major Knox Adventures is a combination of honoring Major Taylor, Kitty Knox, 2 folks that not only were staples in the cycling community, but also examples of what radical joy looks like. And so we honor them and the other lesser known Black outdoor enthusiasts or people of color in the outdoor enthusiasts. And so Major Knox Adventures is about like hosting outdoor experiences that tie in history. So everything that we do ties in history in some way, shape, or form. Even when we host a random community ride, we're always riding by something that is historical. And so I started that the same year I started the 1920 Legacy Tour. So in 2021 is when I created the company, which is like the umbrella that the tour falls under.
Was under. Okay.
Yes. And so we have other experiences like the Chocolate City Community Ride, which is, like I said, the Friday after our tour. We have other things that we pop up with and do. We've done beach camping trips and running retreats. We've hosted community rides. We also do history workshops now. So yeah, there's a lot of, it's like our catch-all for, again, spreading and promoting like radical joy and the history of people of color finding joy in outdoor spaces.
DC? I gotta come to DC. I gotta come to DC
You do.
and partake in some of those events. That sounds so cool. And I did like DC. I think in 2018.
Okay.
And
Nice.
it rained the whole time, but it stopped raining after I was done. But
Oh.
but after that, my friend and I rode to go meet someone, and we're riding through DC, like the neighborhoods, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this seems so historic and cool. Like I don't spend too much time in DC like that. And when I am in DC, you know, it's like I'm not in certain neighborhoods, but I was just like, wow, I would like to come back to DC and ride.
Yeah.
So that's on my list to do. Like I like to like go to different communities and you actually see, you know, the community.
Yeah. I
Look at
mean,
the buildings, and there's so much history that we don't even
it's
know.
so much history. Like in DC, like many cities is going through a lot of gentrification. So
Yes.
unfortunately, some of our architect and all of that kind of looks a little different, but there are like historical preservation societies around the city that are really big on like preserving certain things or preserving certain looks.
Yeah.
Which is very really important and helpful, because I'm like, this city, again, it's Chocolate City, and it was the first city in the country that had a predominantly Black population. And so being able to ride through certain streets and neighborhoods, like you could literally ride past the home that Duke Ellington used to live in, and other like greats within like the like jazz era and things like that. And some of these homes people live in now, but you know, there are like markers around the city that also helps tell the story. And one of my hopes is to be able to start leading bike tours around the city that continue to share the story from the people who grew up or who come from those neighborhoods. And hopefully other cities, if they don't already have it, have something as well, because gentrification does kind of rip the culture and the history from some of our neighborhoods. And sometimes you can go in certain neighborhoods and you don't even recognize the place. Like, and so, you know, like whatever we can do to preserve pieces of that. Like I was listening to this book called Chocolate City that is about DC. And I'm listening to like certain neighborhoods and what they used to look like and be like. And now as I'm riding through certain parts of the city, you do kind of sometimes see the essence of it still there. But I also imagine what it looked like back then, and like what it must have been like to see certain neighborhoods that were predominantly Black back in the day, which we don't get to see that very often now.
Yeah.
So it's like to be able to just in my mind imagine what that world looked like is really dope. And during our Chocolate City community ride, we ride through what they call East of the River. And that is where the majority of Black folks in the city still reside. And a lot of times when we think of East of the River, or when stories are told about East of the River, it's always like really negative, narratives. And so during our Chocolate City ride, we're going through the neighborhoods, and we have a mobile go-go band on a truck that's
I
leading us
saw
through
that. I
the
saw
neighborhoods.
that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and go-go is like really a part of the DC culture. Like that is like go-go is DC.
Yeah.
And so to be able to have this thing that is very special to the history and fabric of the city leading us through the community, we start to see the community different. We pass by Frederick Douglass's house, and where his house is there is so special because during that time in that part of the city, it was predominantly white. But here, this Black man bought a home on top of a hill where he now essentially looks down on everybody. How powerful is that message? And so it's like we pass by there. I want people to see that. We go through other parts of the neighborhood that eventually did shift to be Black, and there's communities there where Black folks were like buying land and then selling it for cheaper so that more Black people could afford to live there, especially those who were newly freed, or who came from slavery. Like that was a thing that used to happen back then. And so we get to travel through that history, and like that again is like what Major Knox Adventures is about. It's like we want you to get we want you to be able to walk away with a little bit of something that you didn't necessarily know, but now feel a connection to.
Now I gotta come to the Chocolate City ride.
Yeah, Chocolate City.
Okay,
Yep.
Chocolate City Community
It's
Ride. Okay.
always it's always actually the Friday before the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. And we do that because a lot of pro athletes are in town during that week. And the other thing that we want to try to do, because many of us did not know anything about bike racing, is to introduce or reintroduce that sport to the community. And we invite the pros to come out and ride with us and see a different part of the city that they've never seen before, and engage with the community and share with the community about how bikes has introduced them to so many different things and changed their lives. And the next phase of the Chocolate City Community Ride is taking youth out to the races that weekend so that they can see. So it's also about like the Chocolate City Community Ride is not only, it's a fusion between the preservation and celebration of the DC culture with bikes, and allowing and reintroducing the community to bikes in a way that they might have been disconnected from. And so yeah, that's usually when we have it, and what we're trying to tackle with that. I mean, again, the youth are really our focus, and engaging the youth with a new like an alternative activity that can really like open up doors. A lot of ways people talk about bikes is how bikes is freedom.
Right.
And that feeling you get when you like go from point A to point B on your bike, and like you got yourself there, like we want to share that with the youth, and we want to open up, like introduce them to a new world they may not have known about, but hopefully inspire or excite them to pick it up and take it and go on to do whatever it is, or let it lead them to paths that are lifelong, will have lifelong impact on their lives and their communities.
Yeah. I always say, like, I'm never sad on a bike. Right? I may be sad before I get on that bike. I may be sad after I get off the bike. But on the bike, I'm not sad. I'm not thinking about those issues. I'm focusing really how to focus on, what's in front of me. Watching out for that car, watching out for that person, watching out for that pothole, along with just enjoying the ride. So, I'd say everyone should ride a bike. Yes, get on a bike. Like you don't know what you're missing.
It's a form of transportation, and it could be your joy, and it could be your tool for competitiveness, and like it just serves so many purposes that yes, like folks should pick up a bike and like literally let it transform their lives.
Yes, and community and friendships. I've made so many new friends from riding a bike, you know? So I always champion riding
Yeah, you're
bikes,
able to see your community in a different way too.
right?
Because when you're in a car, like you don't get that intimate perspective with your community the way that you
Mm-mm.
do on a bike. Like, and just being out in your community and seeing it differently, you also start to take a, like, have a either a different level of appreciation
You
for
do.
it. And seeing the possibilities for your community. And like I also hope that the more folks get engaged in being outdoors, and when I say outdoors, I don't just mean the wilderness,
Mm-hmm.
I mean our urban backyards. And like the more engaged we are with that, like the more we're outdoors, the more we're able to connect with our community, and we're able to see when things need to be changed. We're able to, like, we have a different feeling about it than we would in a car. So like I just think that the bike can serve literally so many different perspectives and layers for us personally and for our communities.
It definitely can. Definitely can. So get on a bike, people. Get on a bike. Whether you're commuting or you just want to ride for leisure, it's fun. Get on a bike.
Yes.
And speaking of racing and being competitive, right? Um, so earlier you said that you participated in a cyclocross
Yes.
cycling race.
Yes.
What is cyclocross?
Yeah, so cyclocross is basically a bike race, um, off-road.
Okay.
It's different from mountain biking in the sense that, like, literally a lot of these races take place in parks. And they might set up a couple of barriers, but for the most part, like, you're racing what I like to call an obstacle course at your local park on a bike. And it's ironically, it's been around for just as long as bikes have been around in this country. It really is a transition over from road cycling. So a lot of road racers, when the season was over, they were looking for ways to kind of still stay in shape. And so they decided, like, that this would be a great thing to do during the wintertime. So cyclocross typically takes place in the fall, and it goes until February. And so that's like so like a lot of the bikes have very similar geometry, and they look very similar to what you might find on a road bike. But I think the thing that I always say about cyclocross, and I want more people to learn about it and get into it, is that it's way more accessible than mountain biking or road racing or gravel racing. Like, gravel racing, you got to be able to get out to gravel roads. If you don't live near gravel roads, you're kind of limited. And if you want to be competitive with gravel, like we have the C&O Canal in DC, which is great. It's gravel, but it's pancake flat. So if I'm trying to be competitive as a gravel racer, I got to be able to get 45 minutes to an hour outside of the city to be able to do that. That ain't really accessible. When you look at mountain biking, like, we are fortunate in DC, we have like one trail that folks use with mountain bikes, but that's it, and it's not that long. Again, if you want to be competitive or you want to race mountain bike races, you got to be able to get outside the city. And just like with gravel races, these races typically take place in rural areas that aren't easily accessible. Road racing is pretty easy to be able to do. You just need some asphalt.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to have a certain bike to be, like, competitive. And, again, those races aren't always the easiest to get to. But cyclocross, like, you can train cyclocross at your local park. You
Mm.
can use just about any bike you have. Like, if you can pick your bike up, you're good. Like, that's all you need to be able to race cyclocross. And also, when you fall, you're falling on grass.
Yes.
So it also doesn't feel the same as if you fall with road. And
Mm-hmm.
but also the skills you build in cyclocross, you can transfer them over to the other disciplines. So I'm all about like, yes, more people of color in cyclocross, and let's get some more women out here, because that is definitely a thing that's struggling in the cycling world, is like women. Um so yeah.
So, how'd you get into it? Like, did someone just say, "Hey, you want to try this thing?"
Yes. That's what it was. I saw cyclocross in my like perusing on the internet. And I was like, every time I saw it, it was muddy. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, thank you. I've got this hair that takes a lot to maintain. And I am not interested in getting nobody's mud in it. That does not look like a good time to me. And then to have to clean all that up again, like, no, thank you. Um, but like I had started following a woman named Sam Scipio, and she is this really, really dope cyclist, Black woman from Detroit, locks. Like she races like ultra endurance races on mountain bikes. So she's done a lot of 24-hour races. She races cyclocross as well. Like she's a cat 2 in cyclocross. And so like I wanted to get into ultra endurance racing at one point in time, and I still kind of have that bug I want to try. But like when I saw her doing it, I was like, okay, if she got locks, she'll understand. She'll understand why. Like I imagine she doesn't want to get mud in her locks either, because
Right.
that's the process.
Right.
But anyway, I had an opportunity to spend some time with her through the Abundance Project that Aisha McGowan founded.
Nice.
She was
Nice.
one of our aunties. And we were talking during that experience, and she was just, telling me about like how certain skills that she's learned from cyclocross has helped her in road racing
Mm.
and in her bike handling. And like she just talked it up so much. And then I had another friend, Marzell, who is a mechanic, an elite level race mechanic. And I went out to see him at Charm City last year, which is like Charm City Cyclocross is like one of the UCI races in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out there to Baltimore to check that out, and, spending the day with him there and getting him to keep like dropping little nuggets into me, I eventually was like, okay, now that I've had a chance to see this, because that was my first race that I went to, I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it. And I went to a few clinics, which I always say, like, if you can, start with the clinics, because that way somebody will help you kind of teach you some of the like most efficient ways to do things. You don't have to follow that. You'll learn that elite level racers do whatever. The point is to just go as fast as you can. But being at a clinic helped me like learn some of the skills and broke things down in a way where I was like, oh, okay, like, for example, when people remount their bikes, folks always like, you look at it, when you see it, you're like, that looks like that hurts. But then you find out like they're not just jumping straight on the bike, they're actually sliding themselves on the bike. And so when you start learning stuff like that, it gives you a chance to like break some of the skills down. And then finally, again, going to the bike race, I was like, all right, I'm ready to jump in. And so yeah, I started about a year ago.
That's pretty cool. So we mentioned mud, right? So I did YouTube it because I was like, what is this? And I saw this one video, and the guys were uh, they were riding, and then I think they picked their bikes up to
Hmm.
walk through the mud and then
Yeah.
get back on the grass. So is that like sort of how the course usually is? Like it's a mixture of mud and grass, or
It's a
just
mixture of whatever the race promoters decide they want to add to the experience, basically. I have yet to do a race that's been super muddy. I'm not sure that I'm interested in doing a race like the soupy kind. Like it sounds like you were looking. That's another thing. You start learning all the different ways that they call the like mud, like peanut butter and soupy and all this stuff. But like, like it literally depends. Like I just did a race this weekend where there was sand and like a sand pit. So we had to ride through sand. I've done a race where we had to go over, like literally ride up a like ramp and ride down it. I've done stuff like where we're like running through like routes on a single track in the middle of like a foresty looking area. So it's different stuff, and the more you kind of like get into looking at the different races, you'll see like the thing about it is just figuring out what features can you add to your race to make it more interesting and, to really challenge the racers. So you'll see some people who will get off their bikes, but then you'll also see people who will try to ride over things.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's very different, and like the culture is very like usually very carefree and fun, and like there's hand ups is what they call them, where like people might stand by the barriers and give out things like candy or beer or whipped cream or whatever. Like it's just like depending on your community, like it's like a big party
Wow.
in a park at an obstacle course.
Do they tell you beforehand how the track is going to be, so then you can decide like, okay, I'm going to do this one, or nah, I don't want, I'm going to skip that
They
one.
usually will give you features, or depending on your location, 9 times out of 10, you can go on YouTube and get an idea of
Okay.
what to expect. Now, sometimes like race directors might decide like they want to change a feature. Like the ramp that I did at that particular race, they never had a ramp before. And it just so happens this year is the year they decided to throw a
Get a
ramp
ramp.
into it, which not a fan of. But you might have some races that have stairs. It depends. Like they change. Some racers will change the features every year to keep people on their toes, and some races will, they have a long history that you could just go on YouTube and see what the race looked like, or they'll give the description of what to expect
Okay.
when you sign up. So yeah, and there's always like some places will do pre-rides, is what they call them, where you get to preview the course. Some people might do that the day before. Some people might have it like, you always want to do that before you race, so you
Yeah.
kind of know what to expect. So it's very rare that somebody's going to just jump out into the race without having an
Without.
idea of like what they're going to be coming up against.
See, there's so much out there,
It is.
right? Within the cycling community, but just in like the outdoor space in general. I recently found out about, is it called, I think it's called trail running racing,
Hmm.
where you're racing on a trail but for like hundreds of miles.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's something out there for everyone. And if you want to go further, if you want to challenge yourself, there's always something.
Yes.
Like, 100 miles ain't nothing, or road racing ain't nothing, or gravel. Then you have this, you have this, you have that.
Yep.
So there is something for pretty much everyone.
Yep.
I think that's cool. I don't know about me trying that, but I I will support you. Let me know what candy you like. I'll hand you some candy, but I don't know about that. But you've done road racing, right?
Yes.
Road.
I just finished my second year with road racing. I Another example of a Black woman, seeing Aisha McGowan
Yep.
lined up at the Armed Forces Cycling Classic. It was the last time that she did it, and I like just seeing her in person, and like seeing her lined up, and seeing her as the only Black woman, like that, just, and seeing her with her fro like hanging out the back of her helmet, like that did something for me. And so when she introduced her the Abundance Project, which was about promoting competitive cycling amongst women of color, I didn't do it the first year, and I regretted it. Like
Mhm.
literally regretted it, because I had a lot of fear around road racing, because it's fast, and if you hit the ground, it hurts.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, nah, dog, I'm good. But also I realized I kept watching a bunch of men's races, and that's where most
Different.
crashes were happening. So
Yep.
also like there's that part. But just seeing all these other women who like they didn't have any experience road racing and they jumped out there to try it. And the Abundance Project also offers like a lot of support and resources. So it was like, you know what, that second year when they opened up applications, I was like, I am not missing this again. I don't want to feel that regret again. And it was also the women who do the 1928 Legacy Tour that really inspired me, because that tour gets a lot of women who are excited about the possibilities, but also afraid. And yet they still sign up and they
Right.
still commit to the training and they still show up. And even when things are hard, they're still showing up. They're showing up for each other. And it's like seeing and being a part of that. I'm like, how can you ask these women to step beyond their fear and you're not willing to even try? And it was like that to me was like seeing them is what inspired me and excited me. And so yeah, I applied for the Abundance Project in 2022 and got accepted. And so once I got accepted, I was like, oh shoot, well now I need to prepare for this, because part of the grant opportunity is that they fly you to one of the biggest race series in the country. So you could either do like the year that I did it, you could either do Tour of America's Dairyland, Tulsa Tough, Intelligentsia Cup, or Gateway Cup. And again, these are some of the biggest race series in the country. So you're talking like the best of the best are showing up to these types of series, but they're also offering novice categories where folks who are newer to the sport or just getting into it can try their hand at it and like grow. And I got selected to do Intelligentsia Cup, and we did 7 days of straight crit racing. So every single day racing, and you're moving at that series, you're going to different cities every day with a different course and a different feature about it that really tests your ability, your handling, your skills. And for me, it was like, it was hard and it was scary, but I was so proud of myself
Yeah.
for getting out there and like giving it a go, and literally just having those types of experiences, being around other women who are just as new to the sport, being around other women who were experienced in the sport, like just being within that community just was so exciting to me that I was like, all right, I want to keep doing this. And so, yeah, I mean, I just finished my second year, and I'm part of what also motivated me to do cyclocross is because I knew the skills that I would build was going to help me for the road, and confidence was something I was starting to have some trouble with this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really been helping to build back up my confidence for the next road season. So, yeah.
I don't know about road racing either. It's, you know what? I have the same fears and like, but I've also been watching mostly men um road races, but it's just that like damn, it's one turn of the this and that it's you might go down and take a whole bunch of people with you.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's why it's important to like work on your skills.
right.
If everybody in the peloton is working on their bike handling skills, then everyone in the peloton is able to have a safe race and
Yeah.
come out scot free. And like the men's racing, don't get me wrong, is super exciting. I
Yeah.
love watching it, especially in person. But it is way more aggressive,
Yeah.
and um there's a there's an energy there that is just very different from the women's peloton. So I always say, like, I mean, even women's elite, I mean, these women are still badass, don't get me wrong, like they're super badass, but they're also, the way that they race is very
Yeah.
different.
Different. Yeah.
And when you are just starting out and you're going to your local races, it's so funny because sometimes when somebody does something bonehead in the Peloton, you are guaranteed to hear someone yell out, "We've got families to get back to. I got to get back to work. Like, get your crap together." Like so like it's stuff like that where it's like it's different for a lot of us. Like
Yeah,
we got to take care of house and home. We can't
exactly.
be messing around because you like doing something stupid. Like, so it's it's all like I always say, like, check out the women's races, and
Yeah,
again, check out a clinic. If you see a clinic pop up, check one out, because those clinics can help you figure out, like, oh, is this really something that I want to go with, or is this, I tried it and it just really wasn't my cup of tea. Because the fear is real. And like, I had a conversation with an elite racer this year at Intelligentsia Cup, because I was saying to him, I'm like, I experienced a lot of challenges with anxiety, and my confidence lately hasn't really been that great. And it just feels like no one else is experiencing that.
mm-hmm.
Like, I wish that there was more conversations around how do folks at the higher level, or even not, whoever throughout the levels, how they work through their challenges with mental health
Yeah,
or anxiety, because that was something that I really could have used more of. And he was like, we all have it. Like, there isn't anybody in the Peloton that doesn't have some level of like anxiousness
yeah.
when they show up, but you start to learn ways to manage it and
Mm-hmm.
work through it. And so that's something that I'm, I guess, in my process of figuring out as I go along.
I want to switch gears a little bit. Running.
Yeah.
When did you start running?
So I initially joined the track team when I was in high school.
Okay.
But I ended up being more of a jumper back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for like a little bit in college as well, but then I stopped. And but I found myself, I like used to not even be able to run like around the track. Like, it was so bad. That was kind of one of the reasons why I was so happy they like thought I would be a good triple jumper, because because I like one lap around the track and I felt like I was going to die. And so, but through like, especially when I got to college, like one of the things that they started have, or they would have us do, was like they would have us do running warm-ups, even
Mm-hmm.
though we weren't really running a whole lot, but like that was part of our warm-up. And that started to help me build up like my endurance.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to, when I was stressed in college, I found myself like going to the track at night, and running was like super, like I found that to be helpful. Like, I didn't realize at the time why, I just knew it helped me feel good. And like now I know it's endorphins. You got
Yeah.
that, your body's happy drug that's like kicking in, and that's why you like it so much. But at the time, like I would go, and then I would like try to do like a little bit more of a lap. Like each time, let's try to do another lap. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, now let's try to do these laps faster than the time before. And I got away from it until about like 2014, when I was having a really, really deep bout with depression, and I needed something. And once again, running came back to me. And that's when a friend of mine was like, hey, because I was living in an area at the time where I didn't have any friends. I didn't, like, the job I was working in was super stressful, and I didn't really have an opportunity to even try to make friends because of my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so my friend was like, hey, you should check out Black Girls Run. That might be a great way to like not only run, but like
Meet some
meet some
people.
friends. And so I did that. I joined the National Mall group, because they have groups that meet, or like at different parts. Like there's kind of like the chapter or regional, but then each region has meetups all over. And I started doing that. And then before I know it, like every day of the week, I was finding a different run,
Mm.
and I would go just to do that. And that brought me into like, one of them suggested another run crew that was in DC, and I was with them for a few years and traveling with them and getting to experience the run crew culture, which is very different than run clubs. And
Mm.
like being a part of their community with people who look like me, who share the same cultural backgrounds and makeup. Like we like to have fun the same kind of way. We listen to the
Yeah.
same music. We know the
Mm.
same references. That's something everybody doesn't get at their local run club. And
Right.
so it was through that experience. And then I'm a person that likes to do research. So I started like researching ways to like understanding distance running better and like how to perform better. And that got me into coaching. And so for about 6 years, I every week would coach a group called Track Tuesdays. And we would like meet up every Tuesday to do track workouts that would benefit build our efficiency and our skills with distance running. And it's literally through those experiences that I met a group of Black folks who were like, oh yeah, we're getting into triathlons. One of those sports where I was like, I've literally never seen anybody of color do that. I've literally only seen white men, and that's it. And here there was like this group of Black and brown folks that were getting ready to start a tri team in the city. And so I was like following their group chat for a while and watching people who like never knew how to swim were learning how to swim. And then eventually went on to do Ironmans, like where you have to swim like miles. Like that was crazy to me. Like people who were picking up the bike for the first time, and the discussions around like all of the equipment and the experiences of preparing for triathlons. And that's what inspired me to get into multisports. That's why I picked up a bike, was through triathlons, and that was through running. So everything always goes back to the running for me.
I'm starting to run now. I'm learning how to swim, and I am going to sign up for a triathlon, the one in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I think it's Philadelphia's Women's Triathlon. I think that's the name of it. But
Okay.
I got to get this. I have to feel comfortable enough, with my swimming skills. But that's super inspiring to hear you say all of this. Especially like it goes back to cycling. From cycling, Black Girls Do Bike. From Black Girls Do Bike, I met all these amazing women, and they are doing other stuff. And some of them got into cycling through doing triathlons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, what is a triathlon? Like I knew what it was, but I'm just like, again, this is early on. People do this,
Yeah.
And sure enough, there are groups out there. People do it. There are groups out there. And I'm just like, wow. And it's so supportive. Just in general, all these, now that I'm finding out, all these groups, from the running to the cycling to the triathlons, it's so cool, especially the support. Even though I'm not racing, I'm out there supporting you. So the running, I'm getting used to it. I just bought some sneakers. I think they're called
Yeah.
Brooks
Okay.
sneakers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm out there. I'm pushing myself. I have to. I've never been a runner. And people are surprised, I guess, because of my frame. They're like, "Oh, you run?" I'm like, "I don't."
Well, you just told me you do, so you are now a runner.
Now I do. I am a runner. I'm a runner and a swimmer. So look at me.
Yeah.
I'm a triathlete.
You are already a multi-sport athlete. There we go. Like, I mean, for me, running too, like, I kind of got away from my relationship with running a bit because I was also using it as like a form of like social activism
Mm-hmm.
and like, I did so much with running and then I found bikes to be really, really enjoyable for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a challenge getting back into it, but it's also like I know just how great running is and feels and like the community, like I tell people like go to races. Like just go to a race. That is where you get to see like you can walk away so inspired. Like you see
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of people out
Yes,
there
yes,
running,
yes.
walking, running, walk, run, like just all kinds of folks. And it's just like, you know what? I can do this. There is that, when they say representation matters, it truly does because just when you think something is not for you, you find out that, like, oh, it actually could be for me if I wanted it. And going to races, going to different communities like New York is really a big part of where the run crew culture was originated, was out
Mm-hmm.
of New York. And so like when you're around those communities and you get to experience those communities, it adds such an excitement and like you're just like, I want to be at everything. I want to go to everything. And it is such a super supportive community. And it's, it just like I say, bikes are transformative, running is transformative. Find you a good pair of shoes that fit, like that feel good for you when you're out there and let them take you. Just go.
Yeah,
Just go.
yeah. Yes. Yes. And I'm finding that out. And I'm building my endurance up. And I never you'd ask me, shucks, 6 months ago. No, maybe a year ago. You want to run? No. And I've always said that. Like people say, like, no, I've never
Why would
no,
I run?
that's
Run for
not
what?
that's not my thing. And people would say, "Oh, you run the right?" No, that's not me. It wasn't a part of me, but now it slowly is becoming part of me. And I'm pushing myself to do things that I never thought I would do and seeing how far I can go
Mhm.
and challenging myself. Um because why not, right?
Yeah.
Why not? you
Well, and then
know
it's also like I feel like with every new activity I experience, like you learn a different part about yourself.
you do,
You learn like about what you are capable of.
right?
Like especially when the activity you decide to do has some challenges to it, you start to learn your ability to adapt and to be open and to experience like I think we've kind of touched on this a few times, but it's like communities that
Yeah.
have existed. We didn't even know it existed, but now we do. And it's like, oh my gosh, like there is, like it's just an excitement because you just unlocked a new level or a new door, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I, I, I encourage people if you see something, try it. And even if there is a little bit of fear there, fear is not bad, right? Fear keeps us safe. However, like you can also expand what you're capable of and like push that widen that comfort zone a little bit more and a little bit more. And you'll find out the things that used to be scary to you, i.e., for me, crit racing, super terrifying to me. Now I'm able to line up and I'm not shaking the way that I was because I've done hard things before. I've done hard races before and I've been able to see what I'm capable of out there.
I agree. Um, so in July, I'll be an official triathlete.
Yeah.
I'll be a triathlete.
Yeah.
I'm scared though.
It'll be fun. And like one of the things, so with triathlons, I have a fear with the water. I still got out there to learn how to swim, but like all my triathlons have been in a pool.
Yeah.
That's a thing you can do. Like if being in open water is scary for you, you could go to a pool and you can do your races there. So it's like there's possibilities to make things work and
Yes.
try new things. So yeah.
Yeah. And this one is in a pool, so all right.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. And look at it this way. If you're like me and you finish at the back for of the swim, you're gonna catch them on the bike. And you're already
Hey.
running, so you're gonna catch them on the run.
Hey, right?
It's
Right?
okay. If there's
Right?
one area to not have the most confidence in, is hey, to me, I say it's the water, because
Yeah.
to catch everybody, you got the rest of the race to catch up to everybody else.
You know, I woke up this morning at 5:50 a.m. Had to be to work at 9, and got up, did my stretches, wrote in my journal, all these new routines I'm trying to do, and or that I'm doing, and I went outside and I ran for 22 minutes.
All right.
And it's like, am I really doing this? After it was over, I was like, you know, I can make time for this. I can do this. I can do this new routine. I can make this a part of me. And not just the running aspect of it, but from the reading and the journaling and the just doing these new things that I was like, I'd rather lay in the bed. But, you know, I'd rather get that little extra few minutes of sleep.
Yeah.
But I was just like, you know what? Get up. Go outside. And I felt better. And I felt better the whole day. I feel good. You know, so okay, running. You got something there. You got something. You got something there. You got something there. I'll run in 30-degree weather. I will not bike. I will not bike in no. I will not do it. I will not.
Yeah, it's a little challenging. I'm one of those folks that have to bear the cold. So, and you're in New York, so it's even colder up there. So I don't blame you.
I will not do it if it's not a what 45, 50. I can skate, and now that I know I can run out there in lower degree weather, I'm fine. On that bike, no. Final words you like to leave us with?
Yeah, I would say 3 things if you gather anything from from today's conversation is like, 1, if it seems like something is not for us, or you have an interest in something, if you do some digging, you'll find out that like we were there. Like that's like one of my favorite phrases, because 9 times out of 10 we were there. And then 2, like, try something new, like i.e. the 1928 Legacy Tour. If you are a woman of color, we are going to be celebrating and honoring 5 Black women, and honestly the history, the legacy of women of color on bikes. Like, we're not just honoring these 5 women, we're honoring all the women that pick up bikes. And we are, you know, through our ride, we are able to sponsor and support the future legacy, with the impact that we get to have through the tour for youth and bike programming. So yeah, interest meeting November 28th. I would definitely say, if you're a woman of color, again, no crazy bike experience that you need to have. Come check it out, hear what we have to say. We'll also be doing an IG live soon over at MAJOR KNOX Adventures on Instagram, where you'll get to hear from women who have done the tour already and get to hear what their experience was like, and find out if this will be a new thing for you to try in 2024. And I would also just say find your version of radical joy. Prioritize joy as much as you can, because it's also the fuel that's going to keep us going through life. So, yeah.
Thank you again so much for being a guest. I look forward to watching you grow in cyclocross racing and as a road cyclist as well. And maybe one day you'll see me out there on the road.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. You're also in New York. There's like such a huge, you already know, such a huge
Yeah.
legacy of black bike racing out there.
Yes.
Teams out there that have a long, like talking generations of history in New York that like are looking and eager to get more of us out there. So when you're ready, they're waiting.
Yeah.
They're waiting. And I look forward to seeing you out there. As many black women as I can see lined up on that line with me, I get so excited because sometimes you go to races and it's just us. So yes, please get it, like try it. I'm definitely looking forward to following your journey with triathlons and running, because that's still my baby. So like I love, and if I could be a resource, like I said, I used to coach, so if I can be a resource to bounce some ideas or talk through some things, feel free to reach out.
I definitely will. I am. You don't have to ask me twice. I am. Thank you in advance.
I'm here with open arms.
Well, we have come to the end of my first Riverside.fm video podcast. Yeah, I just have to give them a shout out because I've actually met people who work for Riverside and they were so cool and giving me tips. So shout out to them. But yeah, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Super excited to share this with people because I think they can get a lot of value out of it. Matter of fact, I know they will get a lot of value out of it. And yeah. So this is the Rolling with Tay podcast. I'm your host, Tasia, aka Tay, and thanks for listening and watching.